I will say this, I feel like the people who run the operations for Disney and Chick-fil-A, they need to like run our country. I feel like they have everything figured out.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Jake Sherrill and Joel Andersen joining you again from Tier 4 headquarters here in Alpharetta, Georgia, for another episode of the Download Podcast. Thank you for joining us. We are thrilled and excited to welcome a longtime friend of Tier 4 Advisors, Shannon Johnston, Executive Vice President and CTO, Consumer Solutions, Data Architecture at Global Payments.
Woo, that's a mouthful. A lot
Shannon,
of responsibility over there, huh?
You're extremely important, and we really appreciate your time in advance. Do you want to introduce yourself to the thousands, maybe millions of viewers around the world who are tuned in to this episode of the podcast?
Sure. I'm Shannon Johnston, and as Jake says, I'm very important, at least in my own mind. I am EVP and CTO for our consumer solutions business at Global Payments, which is goes to market under the brand of NetSpend. It's a stored value product, and then also data, all of data for the company and enterprise architecture. And so have known Jake for a long time. Really happy to be here.
Thank you again for your time in advance. It's wonderful to have you and looking forward to the conversation. For those of you who are tuned in, if you've tuned in before, you know what the download is about. You know what Tier 4 is about. But for those of you who are maybe joining us for the first time, the Download Podcast is a podcast that features trending technology news, insights, and thought leadership from some of the best and brightest, like Shannon, in the technology industry. From a Tier 4 advisor standpoint, you can find us at tier4advisors.com. We are here to simplify and expedite the procurement process, the enterprise architecture, the strategy, the planning of different projects, whether that is data center, cloud, telecom, managed services, or security. So not as a vendor, but more so as an extension of your team and a subject matter expert who has done thousands of different projects over the last 9+ years. Hard to believe it's been that long. But we have all the notes and all the quotes and all the data from all the projects that we've done. All right, let's jump right into it. Shannon, again, has quite the role and responsibility in her day job. She's going to tell us a little bit more about who she is and how she got to where she is. Mm-hmm. We have a lot of folks that tune into this podcast that are of maybe a younger generation than myself. I'll go ahead and date myself, not anybody else, who are always looking or, searching for ways to kind of, build their resume and grow their career and get to maybe where they want to get one day. And so I think it's always fun to give some feedback of kind of how we have gotten to where we are within our careers and things like that. So it's always fun, Shannon, to kind of talk a little bit about what somebody's first job is or was, excuse me. So we've heard it all, right? From flipping burgers a couple of weeks ago with a global CIO at McDonald's. Yep. To somebody working on the family farm. So what was your first job? Just a few years ago, of course.
Yeah, yes. I suspect I'm older than you even, Jake, but I won't date myself.
We'll leave that alone for now.
Yes. I may have one of your more interesting first jobs. I forgot you were going to ask this question, but my first job was as a bed maker in a retirement home.
Wow.
Yeah,
that's a first.
So 66 beds in 3 hours. That was the and got paid very well to do so. I think I will date myself now because I was 14 at the time, and I'm 50 today. So this will tell you how many years ago it was, and was making $5.50 an hour, which up till a few years ago was our minimum wage in the U.S. And so 20 plus years ago.
What city were you making beds at a retirement home?
Framingham, Massachusetts.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, up north. So my dad was Army, and so we lived all over the place. And at one point we were near Boston, just outside Boston in Framingham. He was working in Natick at Natick Labs.
Amazing. That's a great first job.
That's unique.
So how would you'd make the 66 beds every day?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. And then, so it was a very, very large retirement home. I think it probably had 12 floors, and each bed maker got a floor. And so that was your task. And once you were done, you would help other bed makers on other floors if they couldn't get their 66 beds done on time. Because sometimes, there are people actually in the bed. So
yeah,
it's not always as easy as it sounds. I mean, these are the challenges.
Quite tricky.
Run out of linens, people still in the bed. It's really tough times.
So as a 14-year-old to where you are now, how did you get from making beds to getting into technology?
Yeah. Well, I have an interesting career path in that I really wasn't very good at school. I got decent grades, but I didn't love it. Wanted to get out of school as quickly as possible so I could just start working, because I love working.
Yeah.
Working and I have always gotten along really, really well. I like hard work. And so I really just tried to get through college as quickly as possible, because this was required in my family, that you would get a degree and graduate from college. And so I graduated from a little school in Savannah, Georgia. And Armstrong State is part of the Georgia State school system, which was a very good school. I have to say, and it was nice because it was really small. So I got a lot of attention, and I probably needed a lot of
Right.
somebody putting their thumb on me. But I was working just during college at a local gym. And when I graduated from college, it was 94, and there were not a lot of jobs. And so I took any job I could get, which was to stay at the gym and be there then full time. And so I was working at the gym when someone approached me and said, you have really great customer service skills. Would you like an interview with this company over here? And I said, yes, I would love that, because I don't want to work in a gym for the rest of my career, potentially. And so I interviewed at TSYS in Columbus, Georgia, which is back then was one of the top 3 payment processors in the world. And so, got my foot in the door there, and just sort of, even though I was in operations, it was a tech company, and really just fell in love with how much there was to learn and how fast everything changed. And so went from there to move to Atlanta just to get to a bigger city, more opportunity, and worked at a little company that did travel rewards for credit card companies that had a really tough time after 9/11. And so unfortunately, they actually sold to TSYS, but not before I had been let go. And so I went to work for one of my customers in Atlanta, who had been my customer when I was at TSYS. And I was in ops, enjoying myself, doing, portfolio conversions of accounts onto our platforms for servicing. And the CIO showed up in my office one day and said, hey, I think you should come work for me. And I said, oh, no, I'm not technical. And he said, really? How many developers do you have in your team? And I said, no, they're system configuration people. They're not really developers. And so, the rest really is history, because that was, 19 odd years ago.
Yeah, that's amazing. And I've had the opportunity to know you for quite some time, over a decade, in fact. It's hard to believe that time has flown like that. But the people that work for you respect you, dare I say, even, love you in the professional aspect of things. I mean, they greatly look up to you and really enjoy working with you and for you. And I know that you know that, but of course you're not going to toot your own horn, but I will for you on this podcast. What do you enjoy most about the IT field? Is it the leadership aspect? Is it the getting in the weeds technical aspect of it? What is your, excitement about being in IT?
Yeah. For me, it's that there's so many different ways to solve a problem, right? So every business has issues, complex problems to solve. And there are, 4 or 5 different paths that you could go down to solve for that problem. And so for me, it makes it really easy to inspire and motivate a team when you say, here's the problem. How do you think we should solve it? Right. And then we get to do the fun part of digging through the different options and doing, sort of the proverbial pro-con list of, hey, let's go this direction. And the really great thing is that you get to do new things. You get to try new technology. You get to play with new things. You get to build stuff. And, sometimes it goes really well. Sometimes you stub your toe. I've stubbed my toe a few times. But I've found that people are very engaged when they're part of the solution. And so it makes it a lot easier than if you have to manage a group where you say, here's the problem and the solution, now go do it. And so, plus, as I say, if there's not a perfect solution for it today, just wait a minute, because the technology is changing so fast that, something that you struggled with today will be really, really easy tomorrow. And so for me, it's just that it's always something new. And if you like to learn and you're sort of a lifetime learner like I am, then you're never bored. And I do get bored. So that's why I like IT, because I've never been bored.
Yeah. It's that seems to be the answer that we get a lot of times for that question. And you're not going to have Groundhog's Day per se, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like the movie Groundhog's Day, where it's the exact same thing every single day. There are certain roles, certain positions in life where you do have Groundhog's Day, but in IT, not necessarily the case. You've accomplished a lot in your career, a lot of awards, a lot of really great things that you've done. What would you say your greatest accomplishment has been to this point?
Yeah. Gosh, I think it's a couple of things. One, it's that I think that, and this is a quote that my boss said to me, not that something I have made up, but he said, your success has given somebody an example of what's possible and a path for them to follow. The notion of, if you can't see it, you can't be it. Mm. Right. And so I think for me, I've proven to myself, along with others, that you can do it, if you work hard and apply yourself. And so from a, English degree at a no-name college to, a long and successful career, I think, hard work and determination do level the playing field quite well. But I think for me personally, my greatest success is that I really feel that I'm still the same person I was 30 years ago. And you could still open the door and walk in my office and ask me a question. And so, for me, it's all about how do I retain the relationships that I've built over time and the same person that I've always been, regardless of, what subjects I have to talk about or who I'm talking to on any given day.
Yeah. Yeah. That's awesome. So, where a lot of accomplishments are taking place, there's obviously a lot of challenges that are overcame, right? You have to overcome a lot of things. What would you say one of the top challenges or the top challenge you had to overcome within your career has been?
Yeah. Well, in some of my roles, I didn't know what I was doing, and so I think it's challenging to enter a role that you haven't had years and years and years of training for, right? I didn't go through college as a science major, as a computer science major or MIS major. And so being in ops and understanding our customer and our business is great. And that's really important. But learning the tech on the job is a whole nother thing. And at first, that was very intimidating to me, that I didn't know more than the people on my team knew. And then over time, I realized that's actually an advantage because, it allowed me to let them decide on many occasions the direction that we took, and of course I asked the right questions and challenged in certain places, but, I think it's given me and my teams a lot of freedom to have people lead, which is really, really great. And secondly, I don't look like what I do. I don't act like what I do. And so, I've had occasions where I've sat in a room full of people and, vendor presents, and at the end of the meeting, they turn to the 50-year-old white guy and say, "So what do you think? Are you going to buy this?" And said person says, "I don't know. Ask Shannon. She's the one that owns the budget." And then, panic stricken.
The salesperson turns flush.
Yeah. So, and it's, and I've learned, listen, shame on me, shame on them, right? It's not all their fault. It's important that you recognize where your gaps are and help people understand, hey, this is who I am and this is my role in this, in this party. And so, that kind of thing has been something that I wouldn't say struggled with, but I think it's something that's important to understand what your brand is and how you're perceived so that you can decide to do something about it or not. as it were, depending on whether or not it's holding you back in your career or not.
Let's keep things moving. This has been great so far. Best thing that we've seen all week is a segment that we do every week. Shannon, we're excited to hear what the best thing you saw all week. I'm excited to share mine, by the way. I hope Joel doesn't steal it, because I legitimately don't know what his best thing he saw all week was.
It's happened before, by the way.
It does happen sometimes. But
I'm
best thing.
I'm hoping I don't steal either one of yours, so I'm really glad I'm going first.
We're going to let you go first. Go ahead. What is it?
The best thing I saw this week was the Djokovic-Brooksby match.
Oh, okay.
I don't know if you guys are tennis watchers. I'm not a huge tennis watcher, but I do really, really, really enjoy watching Djokovic play. And I will tell you, Brooksby gave him a real run for his money, and I think he's a tremendous talent. I'm so curious to see how he does. 19 years old, and he's giving Djokovic a run for his money. It was a great tennis match.
Joel, I'm gonna let you go next. Don't steal my best thing I saw all week.
Neither one of you will steal this, because mine's very family specific. We got to go to Disney World this last week, and we got to take the two young girls to Mickey's not so scary Halloween party, whatever it was called.
Already in September.
Yeah, but
okay.
But it was a blast. I mean, like, to see the kids just faces light up. The park shuts down. So the party's from 7 p.m. until midnight. And so there's maybe like a quarter of the amount of people that are actually in the park. So you can walk right onto the rides. You get to trick or treat. You get to experience all the new fun lights and all that kind of stuff. Gets you in the fall Halloween type of mood. And my wife and kids and some friends of ours that went along with us, we had an absolute blast. And I will say this, I feel like the people who run the operations for Disney and Chick-fil-A, they need to like run our country. I feel like they have everything figured out. They have all the lines, the operations. They are fluid, but obviously there's a reason folks go into the private sector versus public sector. But anyway, that was the best thing I saw all week, was going to Disney World for Mickey's Not So Scary Halloween.
Watching your kid's face light up with certain things, Disney is magical.
It was a lot of fun.
That should be the best thing you saw all week. That's great.
A lot of fun.
All right, my turn. Have you seen the viral video of the guy walking in his backyard on a conference call who falls and trips into the pool? The guy is walking in his backyard. He is walking on the coping of his pool, left foot into the pool. Just so happens that there's a little bit of a shallow end. Does this weird kind of cartwheel thing. He's actually talking as he's falling into the water. Rolls through, doesn't go all the way in, submerged, keeps the phone out of the water, rolls into a seating position on the coping as he's talking. It was, if you're a professional who is taking conference calls from anywhere other than your office, which is now 100% of all professionals in the world, you can
take some notes,
get a kick out of this. Okay. Anyways, hopefully that just made your day, or at least it's something you can look up or see right here on the Download podcast. Good stuff.
Nice.
All right, let's move on. Some other Q&A for, as friends will call her, SJ, Shannon Johnston, in some of the deeper technical things that we get a chance to talk about here.
Sounds good.
All right.
So Shannon saw recently that AMB Sports Entertainment announced a partnership with Global Payments to be the official commerce technology provider there at Mercedes-Benz Stadium. For those that haven't been to that stadium, it's phenomenal, where the Atlanta Falcons and Atlanta United play. Fantastic. I think over 50 events happen there per year, like 3 million visitors, something like that, within that stadium.
Kanye lives there?
I guess so.
Okay, sorry. Anyways.
So what does that partnership mean for Global Payments, for AMB Sports, for the fans that will be attending the stadium? Can you talk about that for a second?
Yeah, so we are really excited about this, and only when Kanye is not in Montana, I think, Jake, really.
That's right.
For us, it's really about the omni-channel experience and the fan experience, because, commerce is about a lot more than just payments, right? And so the really great thing about Global Payments is our innovative cloud-first platform. We do think of a fan-first experience, right? And you think about the online and offline events that happen all during and before and after the events that are at the actual stadium. And so really just excited about the partnership and being able to be the payments provider for Mercedes-Benz. And, obviously, personally, I'm hoping that it's more than just Mercedes-Benz. It's like we'll take over all the stadiums in the U.S.
All right, well, moving along here. In the wake of COVID-19, contactless payments are kind of on the rise, almost the norm. Either low touch or like no touch is kind of is on the rise. Can you share how contactless payments are good for business? Then how, like, and security that goes along with it, I think has a
fraud
concern that goes along with other people too. Talk about how, Global Payments is addressing that.
Yeah. So what we've seen obviously is that, commerce shifted during the pandemic, and so much of what was happening, bricks and mortar moved to online. But even so, now that people are starting to be back out and around, they are choosing stores that have enabled contactless payments and are choosing merchants that have contactless payments. We've done a bunch of studies on this, and we have some interesting white papers to download. But overarchingly, it will drive consumers to your business to afford these different options in terms of payments. Because again, the other thing too is just simplicity. People want fast, and they want to just be able to, near field communications, and our QR codes are coming. There's so many different cool technologies in this space. I will say this, in terms of security, the security is still the security, right? And so it's similar for us in terms of a card present transaction as it is contactless, in terms of how we take that information, tokenize it, move it around, and make sure that it is safe. And so, we have a phrase we use, which is security by design, right? Where it's like, that's one of the first things we look at as we're building out our solutions is how do we secure the transactions and the data associated with the transactions. And so it's no less important contactless. It's no more important. And I know that's sort of weird to say, but it's just, it's the basic foundation. And so, but really excited about it. For us, it's very interesting to watch the trends happening in that way. And honestly, it's one of the reasons I love Global Payments is because of this omni-channel ability that Global Payments has, is that, businesses need to be able to service their customers online, in person, contactless, et cetera. And so, because you've got all the different, I think of, you said Chick-fil-A earlier, I think of Chick-fil-A, right? Mm-hmm. You've got people driving through a drive-through, but then you've got the guy who's standing out there with an iPad taking orders, who's busting the line, right? And so all of that capability has to be embedded. It's not just a payment, right? It's payment, but it's also all of the things that go along with point of sale. And so Global is really, really good at that. And we have some flagship products in those spaces. And so it's really cool stuff that's unfortunately the result of a global pandemic, but I think is really giving consumers a lot of great ways to get what they need and transact with their merchants and their providers.
Yep. On the upward trend.
Yep. That's right.
So when it comes to additional technology trends that are out there, specifically within the financial services space, we're just talking about contactless payments. You as a IT professional, what are you paying attention to within the space that's kind of getting you excited that you're like, ooh, I'm curious where that's headed in the next couple of years?
Yeah. It's interesting because I own data for the organization. I'm always curious to see ways that we can apply data in different ways. Can we use data, to help with loyalty and our loyalty products? Can we use data to help with fraud and reduce our fraud risk? Those types of things. And so anything around data in terms of AI and ML and ways that we can use those tools for business value. I mean, I think our big thing for us is like, what is the value to the business and the businesses we serve? We don't typically do innovation for innovation's sake. We really do say, how does this transform, our merchants' business, and how we give them the tools where, they own a pizza shop or 10 pizza shops. They just want to make great pizza. They don't want to have to deal with the, small business ownership and some of those some of those challenges, how can we take some of that away from them? How can we give them the tools that they need to run their business without it taking a lot of time? And so really excited about that kind of stuff. We created and launched an analytics platform for our merchants a couple of years ago that is our flagship products. It's in Google Cloud Platform. And, we're continually enhancing that, which is, I think, a differentiator for us and a really exciting platform. Again, AI and ML, how do we do predictive analytics for our merchants where they can say, hey, if it's Tuesday and it's raining, do I need to make more turkey sandwiches or more tuna sandwiches, right? So I mean, it's just sort of the practical use of machine learning and projecting or predicting activity. We've done some work with bots. We've done some work with RPA successfully. A really interesting stuff that we've done there. I will say personally, I'm looking into what should we be looking at from a crypto perspective. I think I'm curious about that and to see where that would fit into our organization. Nothing of note to talk about yet. Yeah. And also just really looking at, we've got strategic partnerships with both AWS and GCP. And so I'm really curious to say, how do we pair those partnerships in a way that it makes sense for us organizationally so that we're leveraging the benefits of some of those strategic partnerships as it relates to data and some of our product development and go to market. And so lots of interesting stuff happening there.
Very cool.
Yeah, like you said earlier, innovation for value, not innovation just for the sake of innovation. So I like that.
Yeah. So much of that happens, right? Let's innovate something. Let's have contactless payment. And no one even cares or uses it. It's got to be for the business. It's got to have a reason.
Yeah. Not to say that you don't want to do any type of, we will typically have, find a solution and say, do we have a problem for this solution so we can test into it? We do some testing in. But when it comes to full-fledged, hey, let's really build this thing out, we do typically want to say, what is the benefit and how is it going to benefit our customer? Indeed. So that, we're really spending most of our energy on stuff that really matters.
100%. So when it comes to, I guess, the war on talent right now that I think every industry is kind of facing, when, you look at the city of Atlanta specifically, where, Global Payments, I think, has one of its many offices, specifically within the financial services industry as well. How are you guys finding talent, retaining talent? How's that working out for you and your team right now?
Yeah. Well, it's an environment like no other. It's really interesting. What we saw with the pandemic is so many companies realized that you don't have to be in a physical office to be productive and to work. And so they started extending a lot of roles that had traditionally been located in certain cities, either nationwide or worldwide. And so, quite frankly, our talent was getting called by West Coast companies who have budgets for West Coast people who live on the West Coast. And so, we had to get creative pretty quickly. And I think, we put a number of measures in place for retention, because for me, it's really about how do we retain our top talent. While, again, we're still looking for, obviously, new people. We've grown tremendously as an organization, both through acquisition and organically. We at Global Payments is hiring, which is awesome. And it's a real cool place to work from a tech perspective. The great thing is that we have offices in many cities. And so, we have a little bit of flexibility in terms of remote, partially remote, in a city that has a Global Payments office, et cetera, where to me, for my team, I say, I would love to have somebody in a city where we have an office as a tether. So they have somebody to go out to dinner with, and they have somewhere to come if their computer breaks and some of that kind of stuff, but not required, right? And so we can really recruit top talent and be flexible about location, which I think makes us a little bit more competitive in this very competitive landscape. Secondly, I think the work that we're doing is second to none in terms of innovation. I mentioned earlier that, our teams get to design how they solve complex problems. It's so true. And so, we retain and recruit people based on the fact that they'll get to work in the cloud, and they're going to get to help design the solutions that we use, and they're going to get to do new innovative things, and they'll build their resume with us, from a tech perspective. And that is transformational for the people who are really, really, sort of diggits and they want to do a lot of that really cool work. And then, we are upskilling the folks that we've got in the organization because we are moving everything to the cloud. And so, it's important for us to retain the people who are there that want to learn the cloud and transform their skill to, everything is code, infrastructure is code, right? And so, we're doing sort of 3-prong in terms of retention, upskilling and retention, being flexible about recruiting top talent, and then just giving them really cool work to do once they come on board. And so, that's hard to beat. It doesn't mean that we're perfect in every way, because obviously brands like Facebook and Apple and Google are better known than Global Payments. Global Payments is in my mind a marquee brand. If you're in payments, Global Payments well, but if you're not, you might not. And so, how do we also then work on that from a tech perspective to get people to understand better what Global Payments is doing and why it's a cool place to be? And so we're doing okay, but I would suggest it's like anyone else. We are focused on it because it's an interesting time.
Shannon, you were talking a little bit about GCP as well as AWS, your partnerships there. Obviously, a lot of legacy companies still have existing, footprint where you own and operate your own metal, whether that's, on-prem in an office building somewhere or in a data center co-location environment somewhere. What does that footprint look like, and how has that transition taken place over the last, call it few years, into more of a public hyperscaler versus a virtual public, virtual private, dedicated private, colo environment?
Yeah. Well, it's a journey and we're on it. I wouldn't suggest that we're there by any stretch. We have a lot of work to do, and it's hard work. We do have a great target architecture model. I'm super excited about it. And so, everything new that we're building in the new target architecture model, as well as moving everything that we've got to the two clouds. And so, I couldn't guess at what percentage of the way we are there, but I will say that from 3 years ago, even transformational in terms of, our skill and ability in the cloud because of what we've done, to just the mindset around cloud. 5 years ago, cloud first was sort of something that we put on our strategy documents and we started talking about, whereas now we're doing it, and it's, you think it feels like a long time, but it feels like it was just yesterday. And so for us, I feel like we're making really great progress. I do think we're ahead of most of our peers, but not all of them. And so I'm really satisfied with that.
And back to kind of the war on talent, right? We talk about a lot of larger organizations who have accepted the fact that finding and retaining talent is very difficult. Obviously, it sounds like you guys have done a good job in doing that maybe a little bit differently and more successfully, which is fantastic. At what point do businesses, or let's just say, for example, other IT leaders out there that are maybe tuning in, when does it make sense to admit that having certain positions in-house might not necessarily make sense, and then outsourcing that to like a managed service provider? And I'm just thinking out loud here, right? If you're an AWS certified cloud architect, you can basically choose where you want to work on any given week, and including working for yourself from a boat in the Caribbean. It's not a bad gig.
That's right.
How do you find those folks and retain those folks? Or at what point do you, look in the mirror and admit, hey, this is better to just outsource to a partner who has a bench of 500 of those folks?
Yeah. So I'll give you a sort of a long answer. First of all, we do have partnerships today that we leverage for specific types of work or just staff aug, depending on demand. We are very flexible in terms of responding to business need, and we call it bursting up and building teams to support sort of unforeseen business demand so that we can be responsive to the market, which I'm super excited about. And I think, Jake, in terms of like specific skill sets, especially early on, we'll probably pay for, right? Because we want somebody to come in and teach a man to fish, help us get it all set up correctly, et cetera. And then make sure that, we are well staffed and any of the things that we're doing that's sort of new. Or if it's just something where the talent is just really difficult to find, mobile development, front end development, some of those where those talents are in high demand right now because of the shift to online. We would very much look at either contract or boutique firms to do that, either for long-term or short period of time to get us over, hiring in for those roles. But I would suggest we do a nice job of sort of FTE versus contract versus partner engagement. And that'll shift slightly depending on what the demand is and what our skill set is, just so that we get the right mix. And we don't just say, like, if we don't know how to do it, we can't do it.
Yeah.
And so it means our leadership is really adept at management because they've got teams of all three combined. And so, they've got to be pretty good at what they do. And they are very good at what they do. But that's a different type of management than if you just have a 50-person team that sits in the same office together every day. It's a different type of management for sure.
Well, and that's great to hear that you have that outlook, right? So many companies, the mindset is this is how we've always done it. This is how we'll always do it. And if it ain't broke, why fix it? Whereas there's a lot of other firms that are, continually innovating, continually finding that next, tier of talent, continually doing the next thing that makes sense for their business for business purposes. And, they're willing to think differently, than maybe they did 5 years ago, certainly 20 years ago.
Yeah. I think it's imperative that you're able to do that, or I think you would miss some amazing opportunities and or suffer. The business would suffer, I think.
Yeah. 100%. Well, this is a great time to spin that wheel. So Shannon, every single time we have a new guest, we spin the wheel. We let fate decide on a question that we're going to ask, totally unprepared. Our thousands of viewers love this part. All right, number 3, almost made it to tier 4, but didn't quite get there. All right, this is a fun one. We've all had a chance. I think we're all very blessed in the sense of being able to see different corners of the earth. So let's talk about the favorite place that you have been on your travels, and then the one place that you have yet to go that you need to go on the bucket list. If, a month from now, that was it, where are you going on your one last trip?
You want me to start?
Yeah.
Shannon, we'll let you start.
Oh, goodness. All right. Well, let's see. Favorite place I've ever been. It's interesting, and it's probably more of like a little recency effect, but I've traveled all over the world. My dad was Army. I was born in Africa. I've moved, 37 times, right? So wow. I have seen the Great Wall of China and the Taj Mahal and the whole shebang. And those rank way up there. Like I had, you have an emotional response to going to see those places. Right. More recently, a couple years ago, I took a helicopter tour of the Grand Canyon.
Cool.
And say what you like about the safety of helicopters, but I will tell you, if you're willing to risk the helicopter ride, it really is one of the most spectacular places on earth. And it's somewhere that I would like to go back and try to hike, because my husband and I do try to get out to the West Coast at least every 5 years or so and do some hiking around the Grand Tetons and Jackson Hole and Yellowstone. And so that is probably one of my favorite places to go. Obviously international fabulousness not included. And I think probably from an international perspective, one of my favorite places in the world to go is, I love to go to India. I love the food. Mm-hmm. I love the people. I try to go, I have a big team there. I try to go every year at least. And Manila. Those are my two favorite work locations, Manila and India. Just fantastic people, fantastic food, good times to see your teams over there. And then where I've never been that I really want to go is I have never been to Australia, and I would really, really like to go.
Nice.
Yeah, it's on the list.
I mentioned 2 of mine.
Some good stuff there. First of all, I will say
travels though. I feel like I need to get out more. Like,
I know amateur hour.
I cheated a little bit because I kind of give you like 4 places.
Amateur hour over here. We're going to talk about Birmingham, Alabama, and Miami, Florida. No, real quick. So get a chance within IT to work with a lot of folks from India. Amazing people, amazing culture. I will say, if you ever need someone to carry your bags and go with you on a trip to India, let me know. I can carry a few bags. Never been, would love to go. Joel, we'll go ahead and ask you real quick, favorite place you've traveled to and also a place you have yet to travel to.
Yeah, my normal go-to would be the beach, but like the first one that comes to mind is the Grand Tetons. So like Victor, Idaho sits on the other side of the mountains from Jackson Hole.
Sure.
Wyoming.
Right.
Beautiful spot, golf courses and greenery and the mountains right there. It's absolutely gorgeous. Jenny's Lake just on the other side. So that general area is one of my favorite places to visit.
Good spot.
And then the place I've always wanted to go to, which I've said on a previous podcast, is Australia. I've always wanted to go there and check it out. It's been a lifelong dream. I always wanted to go. That's on the bucket list to get over there.
I have 2 people to go traveling with now. That's exciting.
There you go.
There you go. We can
road trip.
Let's go. Let's jump it on. All right. My turn to answer. So I'm going to say my favorite place that I have been, that if you haven't, you need to check it out. The Nepali coast on the island of Kauai. Okay. You've seen Jurassic Park. You've seen the cinematography of Jurassic Park. Shannon did mention a helicopter ride in the Grand Canyon. I will throw a curveball there. The Grand Canyon of the Pacific is called Waimea Canyon. It is on the island of Kauai. I have ridden in a helicopter twice, heading right under the cloud cover, right towards the canyon wall, going down underneath with some spray from a waterfall. It's unbelievable. I'll just share that with you. All right. Place that I have yet to travel to that I have to check out before I cash out, Dubai. Never been, right? Dubai looks cool. Actually was talking about Dubai with someone just the other day who has been to Dubai. Highly recommended. So SJ, have you been to Dubai? You've been all over the world. You haven't been there?
I've not been. No.
So maybe India, Kauai, Dubai, all on one trip. That could be Australia.
That would be the ultimate trip.
All right. Lots of stuff to do. That's good. I love that question. I'm glad that was on the list.
If you can't make any of these places, at least you can join us at a Tier 4 Advisors VIP event that's upcoming. Let me put a plug.
You like that segue?
You like that? Was that a good transition?
That's amazing. Go for it.
All right, we have
VIP.
He held his finger on that spinning wheel just so that he could.
That's right.
That's
right.
We have a lot of great events coming up for IT leaders and business leaders in a handful of different markets. I'm going to put the link to display right here with all the different wonderful events coming up: Seattle, Boston, Philly, Dallas, Miami, Phoenix, Vegas. So anyway, visit tier4advisors.com for an upcoming VIP golf outing in your area, and then also on our 7th annual pheasant hunt happening on Friday, December 10th.
Yeah, come out, network with like-minded folks, other IT professionals, meet a couple of vendors that are in our database of over 700 vendors. If you've ever used Travelocity.com or Priceline.com for travel, that's kind of what Tier 4 is for IT vendors, right? One place, one hand to shake, one back to pat, right? Help us or let us help you with these different types of projects, simplifying and expediting the process. And come out and play golf or do a pheasant hunt, or we rented out the Talladega Motor Speedway a year ago pre-COVID for the Ricky Bobby experience. Shannon, unfortunately, you didn't make that event, but if you ever want to drive a NASCAR at 200 miles an hour, you know the IT partner to come to some of our events one of these days down the road. So good stuff. If you or anyone you know needs help with any of your IT projects, simplifying or expediting the process, again, you can do it internally, 8 to 10 months, or come to Tier 4, 35 to 40 days. We're here to help any way we possibly can. Again, not as a vendor, but as a subject matter expert who literally and figuratively sits on your side of the table. Look us up at tier4advisors.com or reach out to your local regional partner in markets all over the country. Shannon, thank you so much again for your friendship, your partnership, for your time being on The Download. Joel, as always, thanks for your help as well. We'll see you next time on The Download.